Steve Darrow says, you've talked before about the importance of chrome in movies, especially militarily themed movies. I watched The Final Countdown the other day, and while I loved the plot, the lack of credible chrome was distracting. What military movies are the worst when it comes to their misuse of chrome? On the quasi-historical list, Hidden Figures has to be near the top. Come on, not a single cigarette is smoked. I think in terms of military, some of the worst chrome I've ever seen is in... the first thing that came to mind was, what was it, Iron Eagle? Is that what the Air Force equivalent, kind of the copy of Top Gun was? With Lou Gossett Jr., was it Iron Eagle? And strangely enough, it was about Falcons, about F-16s. So much of the symbology there is just terrible. I know it's got to be tough for Foghorn, especially who's an F-16 driver, to watch movies where you see, the whole front of your cockpit is lit up with nothing but a big flashing red light that says missile lock. And then a missile this big goes off the rails just so you can see that the missile that you've just launched off the rails right over there has actually gone off the rails. That kind of stuff drives me nuts. The chrome thing is a sign of laziness on the part of a writer who's not willing to do his homework and not just learn the terminology, but learn how and when to use the terminology. That is one of the first ones that comes to mind. I can't think of anything that really just leaps out at me because there's not a big line between bad chrome and just plain stupid movie. Star Wars. Here's what bothers me. Here's an answer for your question. I think probably the worst chrome, if I think about it now, is actually in the movie 2010. And the reason that the movie 2010 is so awful looking is because 2010, the sequel to 2001, was made in the era of computers and computer graphics. But it was made really early in the era of computer graphics. And so you're stuck with a situation where 2001 A Space Odyssey, the screen displays in 2001 A Space Odyssey in themselves are works of art. If you really get a freeze frame down there, you can see Dave Bowman and all the rest of the stuff on the back. One of those pictures back there is of the inside of the Space Shuttle Orion. If you're ready to pause a frame or two in 2001 A Space Odyssey, and by the way, if there's any movies that don't need pausing, it's 2001 A Space Odyssey, because it's not exactly a wild ride through the pacing machine. But grab a frame or two of those and look at the thought that went into every single one of those hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of displays that show up throughout the Discovery, show up throughout the docking mission and on the Ares and the Orion moon shuttle, all of this stuff. It's astonishing how good it is. And the reason it's so good was because they were hand-drawn by animators. They might have been hand-drawn by Disney animators, but they were hand-drawn, and so they looked exceedingly sharp, and they're brilliantly thought out. Everything on Discovery has a 3-letter code, and if you look at it, and you do nothing but look at the displays, you realize this is why Stanley Kubrick's a genius, and why 2001 is such a classic movie, because when you're dealing with geniuses, they have to get everything right, every little thing. Orson Welles would take 2-3 days to light one shot in Citizen Kane. There you go, CP Tomes already beat it to me. But each one of these screens has a 3-letter display. There's another one from CP Tomes. NUC, nuke for nuke. NUC, it's the nuclear power plant stats. COM is one. HIB, HIB is one for hibernation. All of these things are the sign of somebody really going to the trouble to get the details right. And this is what Chrome means to me, the whole idea of things in there that are really just very clever. I remember reading the story of 2001 A Space Odyssey and how it was made, and some young woman, young girl really, I want to say she's 15, 16 years old, wrote a 20-page letter to Stanley Kubrick about 2001 and what it meant and some of the hidden meanings in it. And Kubrick flew her out and met with her because she was like apparently the only person that really got it. But there's a number of technical errors in 2001: A Space Odyssey, but the technical errors give you an indication of how much they got right. Probably the most famous technical error, at least the most visible one in 2001: A Space Odyssey, is he's in the weightless environment. He's traveling from the Earth to the moon. Haywood Floyd's going to the moon. And he's sipping various kind of, pastes. And here's cream corn, and here's, cream peas. And he's got basically little straws, and he's sucking this stuff out of these zero gravity meals, and he sucks the stuff out of this one straw, and then the stuff slowly goes back down because he shot it on Earth, and the gravity's pulling the stuff back down the straw. Now, when you're dealing with that kind of hair splitting, you've got a real target there. Now, go and watch 2001, and then watch 2010, which was made 20 years later, something like that. 2001. I've got to answer this. Mike Massetti asks, Bill, do you have to be good at math to become a pilot? Civilian pilot, I mean. You have to be able to be good enough at math to be able to fake it, Mike. You have to know you're going to have to pass some fundamental problems in navigation, but I am not good at math at all, and I passed my private pilot's license and my instrument license. So the answer to your question is no, you don't have to be good at math, but you are going to have to study some math if you want to get that license. It's sensible math, but they're going to tell you, you appear at this fix at this time, and then you go on this course at this speed for this amount of time with this kind of headwind. What time do you pass this other marker? And you're going to have to learn how to figure that out. But fortunately, the Kings are there, John and Martha, who's... They're instructors, aviation instructors, have been doing it for 100 years. And John and Martha King both have pilot certificates, and where it says ratings, mine says private pilot. I should have gotten the commercial license right away because I was ready to pass that. And it says, so mine says private pilot, instrument, and so on. And John and Martha's license say all. Ratings, all. They're rated to fly everything. Hot air balloons, helicopters, gyrocopters, everything. But you'll get there, so hang in there. It's worth doing. And it's not real bad, not real hard. And in the days of GPS, you're going to need to know how to do it. But to be perfectly honest with you, even if the GPS fails in private pilot world, just, know where you are and learn pilotage. You get to your next airport. It's not that tough. So do it. Anyway, so we're back to 2010. Now, 2010 was made at a time... No, it's not trig, nothing like that. Nothing like that. You're never going to hear the word cosecant or any of that nonsense. You're going to have to be able to do fundamental arithmetic, really. It's just common sense stuff. And you're going to learn how to use a flight computer, which is a plotter that basically mechanically does what an electronic calculator does in no time. And you're going to have to learn how to do like course offsets, but you really do need to know these things, and it's not It's challenging, but it's not daunting. So 2010. So by the time they make the follow-up movie to 2001, they make 2010, which I thought was a very poor movie in many ways, primarily because of Roy Scheider, who I don't know. I just don't think was really the greatest actor ever, but he was great in Jaws. But anyway... By the time they make 2010, computer graphics had just come along. We're now at the point of maybe the Apple IIc, maybe, or maybe the Amiga. And so they decided that for the computer graphics on board this advanced spaceship, they were going to use actual computer graphics from 1984 or whatever the year was. And you see these wireframe lines going... It's just unbearable. It's unbearable. Unbearable how bad it looks. I want to say there was another one of those, maybe it was Hunt for Red October, same disease, made at the beginning of the computer graphics era, used actual computer graphics on a machine that maybe had a megabyte of RAM, and the stuff just looked like garbage. It looked good at the time because we didn't know what would look better, but boy, you want to talk about dating something. It's just terrible. And sexy Russian pilot in that movie of the Leonov is none other than Helen Mirren. And I am friends with, not good friends with, the gentleman who meets Haywood Floyd on the park bench in Washington. When I was first introduced to him, I basically said, "My God, man, I know you. You're the guy who talked to Haywood Floyd on the bench." Yeah. So anyway, so I think that's really it for the Chrome thing. But yeah, it's the little things that make things matter and make things work. We'll do one more.